Have you ever pondered the question, why must all things we cherish eventually fade away? It's a thought that has crossed the minds of many, a question as old as time itself, and yet it holds a profound significance in our lives. The topic of grief and loss is not one we often choose to dwell on. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, and it's heart-wrenching. Yet, it is an inevitable part of our existence. The sun must set, the leaves must fall, and the river must eventually meet the sea. Just as these occurrences are a part of the natural cycle of life, so too is loss. It's a universal human experience, one that binds us all, irrespective of our backgrounds, beliefs, or the paths we tread. Think about it for a moment. Every relationship we form, every bond we create, every object we hold dear, they're all fleeting. They're not ours to keep forever, but ours to appreciate, cherish, and ultimately let go. This is the reality of the world we live in, a world that is in a constant state of flux, always changing, always evolving. People cope with loss in a myriad of ways. Some allow themselves to be consumed by the pain, others bury it deep within, and some choose to face it head-on. The way we grieve is as unique as we are, and there's no right or wrong way to navigate through this complex maze of emotions. Yet this doesn't make the journey any less daunting. The fear of loss, the anxiety it brings, and the grief that follows can often leave us feeling lost and overwhelmed. It's a heavy burden to carry, one that can sometimes feel unbearable. But what if there was an ancient philosophy that could help us navigate through this inevitable part of life? A philosophy that doesn't promise to take away the pain but offers a different perspective, a fresh approach to dealing with loss. A philosophy that has stood the test of time and continues to offer guidance and solace to those who seek it. Would you be interested to know more? If so, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to never miss an enlightening discussion. Welcome to the world of Stoicism, a philosophy dating back to ancient Greece and Rome. This age-old philosophy, founded by Zeno of Citium, has been a beacon of wisdom for millennia, providing guidance and solace in a world that is often tumultuous and uncertain. Stoicism, at its core, is about acceptance. It teaches us to face the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Stoics believe that many of our troubles stem from our desires, our yearnings for things to be different than they are. But the world, they argue, is indifferent to our desires. It simply is. And so, they say, should we be? This acceptance, however, does not mean passivity. On the contrary, Stoics encourage active engagement with the world. But this engagement should be guided by reason, not emotion. Emotions, they argue, can cloud our judgment and lead us astray. Reason, on the other hand, can provide clarity and direction. This brings us to another fundamental tenet of Stoicism, the pursuit of virtue. Stoics believe that virtue, defined as living in accordance with nature and reason, is the highest good. It is the path to true happiness. And this happiness, they argue, is not dependent on external circumstances, but on our internal state of mind. Stoicism, then, is a philosophy of self-mastery. It teaches us to control what we can, our thoughts, our reactions, our actions, and to let go of what we cannot, the whims of fortune, the actions of others, the march of time. It is a philosophy of resilience and equanimity, of steadfastness in the face of adversity. But what of grief? What of loss? These are universal human experiences, after all. Experiences that can shake us to our core, that can leave us feeling lost and adrift. So how does this philosophy interpret grief and loss? For Stoics, grief and loss are not only inevitable, but also necessary parts of life. These are not just words to the Stoics, but a way of life. Loss, whether it's of a loved one, a cherished possession, or a long-held dream, is a natural part of existence. Just like the changing seasons or the setting sun, loss is a part of the cycle of life and should be accepted as such. Stoics view the universe as a rational, orderly system, where everything happens for a reason. So, when they experience loss, they see it as part of the grand scheme of things. They accept it not because they are indifferent or uncaring, but because they understand that loss, like all other things, serves a purpose. But what of grief, that raw, wrenching emotion that accompanies loss? For Stoics, grief is not a reaction to the loss itself, but rather our perception of it. It's our interpretation of the loss, our attachment to what was lost that causes us pain. And here's where the Stoic philosophy offers a unique perspective. Stoics argue that we cannot control the events and circumstances of our lives. We cannot stop the march of time, nor can we prevent the inevitable changes it brings. But what we can control are our reactions and thoughts. We can choose how we perceive loss, how we react to it, and how we let it affect us. In the Stoic view, grief is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be understood and managed. It's a natural response to loss, yes, but it's also an opportunity to practice resilience, to learn, to grow. Stoics believe in focusing on the present, on what's in front of us, rather than dwelling on the past. They encourage us to appreciate what we have while we have it, and to let go gracefully when the time comes. They remind us that all things are transient and that loss is just another part of the journey. They also emphasize the importance of perspective. Instead of viewing loss as a catastrophe, they urge us to see it as a natural, inevitable part of life. Instead of focusing on what we've lost, they encourage us to concentrate on what we still have, on the opportunities that lie ahead, on the lessons we can learn from the experience. Stoicism, then, is not about suppressing emotions or denying pain. It's about acknowledging our feelings, understanding them, and then choosing how we respond to them. It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the good and the bad, the joy and the sorrow. In essence, the Stoic philosophy teaches us to embrace loss as an integral part of life and to control our reactions to it. It's a philosophy that encourages acceptance, resilience, and growth. It's a philosophy that, in the face of loss, offers not just solace, but also wisdom and strength. So how can we apply Stoicism to our own lives, especially when dealing with grief and loss? Let's start with a simple yet profound truth. Emotions are natural and inevitable. The Stoics were not emotionless. They recognized emotions, but they advocated for emotional resilience. When grieving, it's important to acknowledge your feelings, not to suppress them. Allow yourself to feel the sadness, the anger, the confusion. Emotions are part of the human experience. What Stoicism teaches us, however, is not to let these emotions control us. We should feel them, understand them, but not let them dictate our actions and reactions. Next, Stoicism prompts us to accept reality as it is. The world is in a constant state of flux, and change, including loss, is an inherent part of life. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." Accepting reality doesn't mean we have to like it, but it does mean acknowledging that it is what it is. This acceptance can be a source of tranquility in times of chaos. Now let's talk about control. Stoics divide the world into two categories: things we can control and things we can't. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it. In the face of loss, we can't control the fact that we've lost someone or something, but we can control how we respond to that loss. Do we allow it to consume us, or do we use it as an opportunity for growth and understanding? The choice is ours. Finally, Stoicism encourages us to find meaning in our loss. This isn't about sugarcoating the pain, rather it's about understanding that even in loss there can be growth, there can be learning, there can be a renewed appreciation for life. The loss of a loved one, for instance, can make us more empathetic, more compassionate, more aware of the preciousness of life. It can deepen our understanding of the human condition and our connection to others. In this sense, loss can be a catalyst for personal growth and transformation. To sum up, applying Stoicism in real life, especially when dealing with grief and loss, involves acknowledging and understanding our emotions, accepting reality, focusing on what we can control, and finding meaning in loss. It's not easy, but it's worth the effort. Indeed, Stoicism offers a different, perhaps more empowering way to navigate through grief and loss. So where does this philosophical journey leave us? In our exploration of the human experience, we discovered the inescapable truth. Loss is inevitable. It's as much a part of life as the changing of seasons or the setting of the sun. We cannot stop it or avoid it, but we can change how we respond to it. That's where Stoicism comes in. This ancient philosophy, with its roots in the hallowed halls of the Athenian Stoa, teaches us that while we cannot control the events of life, we can control our reaction to them. It's not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgment about them. Stoicism is a guide to maintaining tranquility in the face of adversity. It encourages us to focus on what is within our control and let go of what is not. We delved into the Stoic approach to grief and loss, which is not about suppression or denial, but about acceptance. Stoicism encourages us to embrace our grief, to allow ourselves to feel the pain of loss, and to understand that it is a natural response to an unfortunate event. It doesn't ask us to ignore our emotions, but to understand them, to examine them, and to learn from them. We also discussed how we can apply these Stoic principles in our everyday lives. By acknowledging the impermanence of everything, by embracing the present moment, and by understanding that our reactions to events are within our control, we can navigate the stormy seas of life with a steady hand and a calm mind. In conclusion, Stoicism offers us a way to deal with grief and loss that is both practical and profound. It doesn't promise a life free from pain or sorrow, but it does promise a life where such feelings can be understood, accepted, and ultimately transcended. While Stoicism may not eliminate grief, it can certainly help us understand it better, and perhaps even find some peace in the midst of loss.